Hello Internet, and thank you for taking the time to watch this educational tutorial on Groovy and JavaFX. We are going to do a simple login using the JavaFX library. It's a modern, up-to-date Vue technology. I'm doing this basically so I can get my skill out there for employers to see my skill level, because currently I'm a truck driver, and you'll be amazed that a truck driver can develop software, but I'm trying to get a job, and I had a lot of pushback when they say, ask to see my resume and they see that I have no experience developing software, but I'm a truck driver, so it doesn't fly over very well, I'm sure you can imagine. So the necessity for this video and more educational videos so that I can show my skill to put out there and help others. The best way to learn is to teach others what you know, and that's the best way. So moving forward, we're going to go ahead and start. I use Intellij, and we're going to start a new project, and we're going to call it login sign in, because it's just a simple login. We're going to check the database against a username and password and log in if it's correct. Okay, so the Intellij IDE will go ahead and create a basic structure here. Okay, and it's called sample on default. I haven't made the template change yet to change that. We're going to go ahead and change the name here, so it's, I think we can change the name here. Can we change the name of that? Reformat code, delete, rebuild, open, login. That's odd. Why wasn't that giving me a option? Factor, there it is. Rename. And we're going to name it sign in. Okay. This, yeah, we're going to do refactor, yes. We want to rename this as well. Refactor, rename. And we'll call this sign in as well. Sign in, signin. Funny how English is spelled, right? I'm going to also change this name to a .groovy. You'll see it as an error right now because we don't have the jar file. Configure Groovy. Go ahead and add that. That's not what I want to do. I want to go up here to the project structure. Give it just a second. Now it looks like it already knew what to do with this. But I don't have the Groovy jar added to that, so that's interesting. Let's go ahead and add the Groovy jar. I have it downloaded. Now we'll go to modules. We want to add a jar, and it's right up here for me on my computer. I just downloaded it to my home folder. It's, and you want the embeddable one because it's the Groovy all jar. Okay, there it is. We'll go ahead and before I apply that, we need to add a couple more for purposes. We're doing a root universal system resource. It's going to be in share/Java, and from there we're going to get the MySQL jar so we can talk to the database. Oh, I'm not thinking. I just passed the M's. There it is. I like to use the updated 8.0.11 jar. Okay. I also need, what else do I need here? The JavaFX. We're doing JavaFX, so we need that library, of course, which is in the IDE root. It's going to be in the JRE64 library extensions. There it is. Right there. Okay. Now just go ahead and hit OK for that. Now we can apply all three of those and hit OK. Now we'll see these over here. There's the Groovy all, there's the JavaFX, and there's the MySQL connector, so we can talk to the database. Now we have all this working. So far, so good. The main part is Java. Now Groovy and Java can go together. It's beautiful how this works together. They both compiled bytecode. So from the CPU's perspective, there's no difference between a Java and a Groovy file. For the CPU, it's all the same. They're getting the same bytecode. All right. It's just Groovy helps us be a lot more productive, a lot more efficient with our code. Okay. So it really cuts out the boilerplate, you know, code. It's written in the library, so it makes us more productive and efficient developers. Okay, so we got the sign in here. I don't like using the grid pane. We're going to go ahead and delete that. Okay, we're going to go to the scene builder. Now this is what I love about JavaFX. This is going to take just a moment to load up the scene builder. Of course, failed to open. What is this? Premature end of life. What the heck does that mean? Failed to open. Never had one of these problems before. Premature end of file. Oh, end of file. I was saying life, wasn't I? I guess that's an anagram of life, isn't it? File, life. Isn't that interesting? Oh, we don't have. Here, let me do undo for a second. Control Z. Control Z. Come on, there it is. All right, we'll Control S to save that. Now let's go to Scene Builder and now open it up. Premature end of life. Okay, so we just hit this grid pane there, and right-click to delete it, where we get an anchor pane here. Nope. What we want to do is bring this down a little bit so I can get to the thing there. Okay, we'll do this anchor pane. We're just going to be a login window, right? So it's going to be very simple, about like so, right? We're just going to have three elements on here, which is going to be two text fields for username and password, right? Okay, we'll do about right there, and we'll do another one. Text. Nope, that's a text area. That's not what I want. I want a text field, right, like so. And I want one button at the top, so we can the action on the button will go to check the database. Yes, and okay, so we're on the button. The button is going to be let's go. I don't like to use sign in or login. It's too you know, obvious. I like to be creative a little bit more. We can go to the code section here, and we're going to type in an FX ID. This is going to be let's go. Okie dokie. That's for the button. Now it got off center there because I changed the length of the. I have a piece of hair right there. I don't know why that was stuck there. Okay, this one, the FX ID is going to be user name. Got it. Okay, properties. We're going to do a prompt text. You can see if I put that out, that's prompt text right there. Okay. Prompt text is going to be user name, right? Like that. This is going to be password, of course. Or we could have it an email and password, whatever you want to do. We're going to take a username, I guess. And we can go down here to the code. We need an FX ID for each one of them so we can refer to them in our controller. FX ID is going to be we'll do word like so. Okay. I don't like the looks of that. It's one word, actually. Alright. Now that, believe it or not, Control S to save, that's as simple as it gets. Okay. For the view. Okay, that's the view. I think we're done with that. We can go check the code. Now I need to make sure that our controller is onto our, we got the XMLS 2 namespaces here, and at the end of it I need to put in, whoops, I'm sorry about that, fx:controller, come on, there it is, and we're going to type, where are we at here, sign in, so we're going to do sign in, yes, dot controller, that's where it's at. Okay, Control S to save, that's there. Okay, so that's as simple as that gets, and we can click on this. This is why we like to use the IED here. Go Alt Enter and hit Enter. Okay, hit Alt. Go to the next one. Alt Enter. Hit Enter, and the next one hit Alt Enter and Enter, and that automatically will go over here to our controller, and there is our three. Now, of course, this does the Java interpretation and not the Groovy. Okay, because it's the IDE and it doesn't know better, but we will just go ahead and delete that and hit enter. I'm sorry, yeah. So let's get this cleaned up here. Alright, so we have these things. They're not integers. I don't know why they thought they were integers here, but we can say we want to call them public so that we can have access to. Yeah, I don't know why I deleted that. I forgot. We need it to be public because now Groovy doesn't necessarily need it to be public because everything by default is public. However, we won't have access to it from the fxml file if it's not explicitly labeled public. We'll have to add in the @fxml annotation. And this is just easier, I find. So this was a text field, yes. So it's a text field, scene control JavaFX, right? There it is. And the next one was the same thing here. We go public, yes. And then text field, there it is. And this one was a button. So we want to refer to it. It's got to be public. And it was a button, not a J button, but a button. And it's a JavaFX scene control. There it is. Give us a space between there. Go to the end. Enter. Okay, now we want to go ahead and implement. Do we want to implement something here? I believe so. Initializable. There it is. JavaFX. Okay. Now we hit Alt Enter again. Enter, enter, and we get a Control S to save. I do that frequently. Control S because as you go, you want it to save before you make any mistakes. You can always go back. Control Z, to undo. Control Shift Z to move forward. Control S to save, and here we are. So, the more that you develop, and the more that you code, the more that you're going to be familiar with your buttons on your keyboard. It's a lot more efficient to use those than to keep clicking, because you have to move your mouse around on the screen in order to get to the, to the button, specific button when your hands can get there a lot faster. So, what we want to do here is go back over here. There's one other thing that I needed to do on this button, right after this ID. We're going to do on action. There it is, and we want to do a hashtag, and we're going to call it the basics, submit. We'll call that here Alt Enter, and we'll create the method as well. And of course, it just does the default. Alrighty, we don't need the definition or the def there. Control S to save. This one is not going to use the action event, so we can delete that. Control S to save. As I said, I do that frequently. It's just a habit you get into when you're developing. And on the submit button, what we're going to take is these things. The username, there it is, dot, it was get text, yes, and that returns a string. So I better define a value named user, I would imagine. Set it equal to that. We'll go to the end, hit enter to a new line. Define pass will be the password, of course. I'm going to call it WD because I have something else going on here I'm going to show you. This is going to be, oh no, within this context it could be pass, right? So, and this one's going to be password. There it is, dot, get text. That helps us out. Okay, now these return strings. So at this point this is going to know it's a string. That's what another great thing about Groovy. It's called a dynamical language, whereas Java is static language. You always have to explicitly declare what type of element or it is. In Groovy we don't have to. We can let it let the code, the library do its job, which helps us out a lot. It has a very Python-y like syntax. You can see that clearly. Okay, so when we do this, we are going to need to run a method that checks the database. So in order to do that, we need a couple other no, not there. I'm in source file, or is it in the signin? Yeah, in this one we're going to use a another package called util. I like to name it, and we are inside this. We're going to do another Groovy class, and it's going to be called. You can name it whatever you want. I like to be obvious about it. Call it data. I need to add one import statement here for the Groovy SQL. This is very efficient SQL writing, as you'll see here. We need to define. These ones are going to be private final. Okay, there it is. And this one is going to be called driver. Remember the caps, all caps for constant helps us see exactly what it is. This one was com.mysql dot cj dot jdbc.driver, right? Just like that. Okay, next one, private, yes, final, okay, and this one's going to be called, what do we need here? The user, we need a URL, so it's going to be the URL. We'll call it SQL URL. Okay, and that's going to be equal to, now in Groovy, you know, in Java, the double quotes you need for a string, right? But Groovy has a couple different types of string, and a constant means that the string doesn't change, it's single quotes. So this one is going to be JDBC. Now I already made the database, so we're just going to get access to it. JDBC :MySQL // it's at localhost. That's my, of course. :3306 is the port number, and / and the table name. Signin, I believe. If I can spell signin. Okay. Now just to verify that, we can go down here to the terminal. As I said, I've already made the database, so I'm just going to go ahead and log in and verify, so we can see what it is. This is MySQL. I have on here user is myself Tetra Pro, and password. Okay, let's sign in. Okay, we're going to go ahead and show databases, like so. And there it is, the sign-in database, okay? So use sign in. Oops. Okay, reading table information, complete table columns. Use database changed. Excellent. Show tables. There it is. We have one table in there, users, and we're going to go ahead and select all from users. There it is. You can see it. We have one Sammy Davis with the password 123. Now, of course, when we for good security, internet security, when we're adding a data password, we would always put in the hash of the password. But for this simple example, I've obviously just put in the password. It doesn't take much just to hash the password and add the hash value into the user password field. And then when the user logs in, what we do is take the hash of their password, because it's always deterministic for the same input, will always produce the same output, and then we could verify the hash matches the hash. So that's the way. But for this simple example, we're just going to go with the password there. And now another thing here, we're going to do a question mark, which means there's some other attributes here, and it's going to be auto reconnect is equal to true, yes, and okay, the use SSL equals to false. We'll go with not secured shell. Okay, private, we got that one. Final, yes, and this one's going to be user, just like so. And this one is going to be Tetra Pro, like that. Now one more, it's going to be interesting here. Private, final. Now I don't want to show you my password, so I've created a class that will get this. I'm going to just go ahead and write it in here. You won't see it. It looks like there was already one there. Huh. Sun security util password. I haven't used that one. I wonder what that does. Let's see here. We'll call it pass. Go ahead and do a new password. Okay. Now let me see what methods they have in it. So we can do dot, and we see, is there a get password? There's not. Get at, I'm not sure. Okay, I'm not sure how to use that one, but I'm going to create, what I did was create my own class, and that's red right now because it doesn't know where to get it from. So in this util, we're going to go ahead and do a new Java class, and this one's going to be password. Okay, and there it is. Now I've made, see, when you do developing, you can make some a toolbox of different ones that you reuse over and over, right? So that you can have access to them. Now what we're going to do is just copy this whole thing. Copy, Control C, of course, and then we'll hop, skip, and a jump over here and do Control Paste, which is Control V, and give a space between that for readability. It looks like I'm missing a. There it is. Okay, Control S to save. Now, just to show you what this does right quick, we're going to run through it. So it's a password. It's going to return, let's see, generates a pop-up dialog to get password input, returns 0. If entered OK, otherwise returns 1. So it's going to have a password, has one public method. It's going to return a character array of the password, of course. Get pass is the method. JPanel, JLabel, and a JPassword. We're going to add the label and the pass. It has a string array of options called OK and cancel, and it has a JOption pane show message dialog, null parent. You're going to add the panel to it, the title, and the JOption pane option no, and a plain message. Its icon is null, and it's going to have the options, pass the options through there, and it's going to be the enter button is going to be set to the OK one. So it's going to so you can just type in the password and hit OK, and it's going to check the password. Character set to null. If the option button is 0, we pressed OK. It's going to go ahead and get that password and then send it back, return password. So that's that. Okay. Now I can type. I believe I hit Alt Enter here. Oh no, let's just go ahead and add it. Oh no, I don't need it. It knows it. It's in the same folder, right? Util. But why do I have this red thing over here? Oh, this is not complete, of course. So we'll go ahead and use the pass that we created. Dot get pass. That was our method we defined in the class. Control S to save, and that's just to keep my password secret, of course. So at this point, we have all the information we need to collect. I mean, to connect to the database. I didn't make a constructor. We need to do this. Data. I want to do data, and I want to do a constructor because let's define this SQL. Call it a connection, okay? Set it equal to null. So when we call when we create a new one, it's just going to be null at first, and then in here we're going to do connection. Yes. Dot. No, I'm sorry. Is equal to. No, it's got to be dot SQL. Wait, I'm having a brain fart here. I'm not sure. Equals SQL dot new instance. There it is. And we're going to use this method right here. It says string URL prop. No, this one. String username password. And you can see it shows us, if you just leave it there, the string URL, that's what we're looking for, that's highlighted in yellow, and then we're going to type in the user password. You can see it, user, then string password, and then we already have this information here. So the string URL was called SQL URL, there it is. This one, the next one was going to be the string, the user, and that was, we named the user, there it is. The next one was going to be password, so we can name that one password, there it is. But this one's got to be, it won't recognize it, so we have to add it as a string, of course, and then we'll type in the password. There it is. Now this is all getting in the way, isn't it? Okay, and then of course the driver. Okie dokie. Now that will work. Now what we want to do is do one other method down here that define a method called is connected, and this of course is just going to test if it's connected or not. So when we call the constructor, it'll build the connection, and then of course this will be in memory so that we can check the connect. Now what we want to do here is this. We want to now in Groovy, the last line is always returned by default. You can write return if you want. You don't have to. It's kind of redundant using Groovy. So because the last line, so we're going to return the connection. But I need it to be a Boolean. My wife's calling. I gotta pause this. Okay, so we're gonna return the connection. Check if it's not null, return true. Otherwise, return false. This is a tyranny operator. So Control S to save. So this is gonna return true or false depending if the connection is not null. If it's null, it's going to return false. If it's not null, it's going to return true. It's set to be null at the beginning, so if this didn't get connected, it'll return false. Okay, because this means not null. Okay, I believe that's correct. We also need to go here to the source. We're going to do a new package called testing, and in the testing one we're going to do a new Groovy called test cases. I'm going to extend Groovy test case. There it is. Now in order for this to work, I'll show you it won't work, and then we'll go ahead and add what we need to add to make it work. So we're gonna define one method here, and it's gonna be called test database connection. We're gonna build our data object, call it data. Yeah, call it SQL. Set it equal to new data. Okay, and then we're going to go ahead and assert that the SQL dot connect is connected, because this returns a boolean. It's going to be a boolean by the time it gets returned, because it's going to be true or false. So assert is going to assert that it's true. If it's not true, it'll return false. So now if we do Control S and then hit this and then go to here, right click and go down to run test case. Let's see, it's building, it's doing things. This should not work. I'm expecting it not to work because we're missing a jar on our class path. You'll see. Unable to resolve Groovy test case. Okay, fair enough. So what I do up here is just go to import, yes, org, yes, dot JUnit is what I want, and this will be red because it doesn't know where it's at. But if we hit Alt Enter, again, the very benefit of using the IDE, hit enter, there it is. Now I can delete this because I just added it there. You could of course go to the project structure and add it the same old way, but again, you'll find shortcuts. You know, whatever works. Control S, Shift F10 to run again. Now I'm expecting this to work. I mean, I don't know if this is, it should. So it failed. Now let's see what failed about it. No test. Oh, I forgot. This is supposed to be void. There it is. Control S, Shift F10. We're running again. And here we go. The test is running. Instantiating test. Current test database connection. Aha, there's that password JPanel dialog. Shows me the password, press enter, and then we got the green bar. You saw it, it turns green, test passed, test passed. So that works. We're connected now, and we have proof, undeniable proof that it worked. So, what do I want to do? This is the data. Oh yeah. So now I need to do one more method. Define check user pass. We want to check if the username and password is equal to the one in the database. So this is going to take a string array, okay, called params. We're going to pass it through here. Now let me think. Test case Groovy controller. At this point, we're going to take. We didn't bring in the object data. Call it SQL equals new. I'm sorry, data. There it is. Alt Enter. Go ahead, Alt Enter. Data signin util, that's the one I want. Okay, Control S to save. And we're gonna go down here, and at this point, it's gonna return a boolean that to give us if it works. So at this point, we're just gonna do a print line and say success. SQL dot, and our method is not there yet because we didn't create it. Okay, so if we hop back over to here, I don't want to go there. I want to go down to data. That was Control Tab to switch tabs up here, to switch pages. Now, what we need to do is we need to select. We need an SQL query that selects this data. So I like to do it in the MySQL before I put it up here, so I can see if it works. Right. So down here we're in the SQL, and we're going to do. Now, of course, you know that the language in MySQL is not. You don't have to be. As you saw me typing up here, the commands were lowercase. It's a what is it? Standard, or a yeah, I guess it's a standard that we type in capital letters. So to distinguish the fact that this part of the code is a MySQL language instead of a Java or Groovy language, or whatever other PHP, whatever language you're using. It doesn't necessarily have to be. It'll work when we run it if it's lowercase. But for readability, to help us distinguish between the two different languages, the one we're writing in the MySQL, we capitalize. So we're going to say, I don't want to do insert, I want to select, right? Select from, yes, users. Oh, I need the, what columns do I want, right? User underscore name, comma, and user pass underscore password. I need to select both of those from users. Condition where user underscore name equals Sammy Davis, and user underscore pass equals, what was it, 1, 2, 3, pass, 6, 7, 8, word. Now, of course, this would be the hash. Remember that you were pulling out the hash, and you're going to run against the hash marked of the name that they, password that they type in. However, for our purposes, we're just going to check. Now, the reason you want to take the username and the password out and check if they're both the same, because some people not necessarily might have the same password, but they might have the same names. Okay, those are very common to have, two different same names. So we're going to take the username and the password and check both of them. If that's the one, then we'll go ahead and get it. Of course, that query works. Okay, so what we're going to do up here is we're going to do a define a string. It's going to be a string. It's going to call it SQL. We'll call it select, and it's going to be a constant string, so we can do single quotes, and we're going to go ahead and copy this, copy, and go ahead and Control V to paste that. Now what we're going to do over here is we're going to delete all of this and put in a question mark, and we're going to delete all of this and put in a question mark. Now, why do we do that? We have some variables to pass in for the username and the password, what was typed into these specific fields, right? We don't know what it's going to be, so we have some question marks there. This will check it. Define string, select. Now this is very simple here. We use now what is it? Execute connection dot remember. execute, select, and pass in the params. Control S. I'm not sure if this is going to work. Again, with Groovy, you don't need the parentheses. That's redundant. You can if you want to use them. If not, you can just. We're trying to make it more readability. The idea of Groovy. So connection.execute, and then select, and then pass in the params. 0. The first param will go there, and the second param will go there. Now, if this is, we need a Boolean to check is success, right? First, we're going to set it to false at the first part, and then if that's true, if it connected there, at this point we'll set the Boolean is success to true, and again the last line in the Groovy method is returned automatically. Control S to save. So at this point, now the only thing that is questionable is this statement right here. Is that going to work by taking the first param and setting it here? The reason we do this is because the Groovy automatically behind the scenes is using a prepared statement, and we want to use a prepared statement so we can avoid SQL attacks, SQL injection, to be clear, right? We're talking about being very clear on our code and doing it the best way possible. It doesn't make sense to do something half-assed, excuse my language, when there's a better way to do it. We might as well do it the best way we can for security, especially if you're talking about, you know, whatever kind of application you're doing with sensitive information in the database. So prepared statements are the ideal way to go. So, having said all of that, we want to go over to the test case. We want to make one more test. Okay, here it is, void. There, we're going to go ahead and test. We want to go ahead and test, select statement, okay, and make a data. I'm not sure. The reason I did this last time was because I kept having to sign in each time it built the data object in memory. So I just want one data object. This, of course, is saying that there's no SQL symbol because remember it's only within the context of the method. And it doesn't exist there, so I moved it down here. When we run the test, I don't want to have to type in my password, you know, 2 or 3 or 4, however many tests I have. I haven't figured out yet how to make only one, how to make that work, unless I just have one data object within my method that I'm using currently. So, moving forward, we want to take this SQL. We want to assert that this SQL object. What was the? It was called check user pass, yes. And we're going to type in what we know the params to be is Sammy space Davis, and then comma. It was 1 2 3 pass 6 7 8 word, and again this whole thing is within the method of assert, right? It's redundant in Groovy to use these things. We don't need it. So this is going to say assert. Now, if this returns true, that means that this data object here returned true, which means this worked. Otherwise, if that didn't work, this is still false, right? Or no? Because if this works, it's always going to be true. So I need an if statement to make sure that that works, right? Could be a map for one name and password. We can do the map there. Connection, this is going to be true always because after this statement it's going to set it to true and it will always return true regardless if this worked or not. Whoops, undo, Control Z, back up. So I want to go here to the end. I want to give me some space. Say if this, I want Control X, move it up here, Control V. This I can back space up right there. Oh, what are we doing? Come on. There we go. Alright, so if I checking? Connection, if connection. I can't just put that in the if statement, can I? Well, we're not sure. So the thing about Control X to cut, Control V to paste, yeah, that's not going to work. Control Z to back up. That is interesting. Well, we can see just for instances, we can see if this works. Basically, right? Check. We want to say, I'm not sure. We can open up this SQL. Then I click on that. Yeah, so it decompiled. This is another thing about a good IDE. So I can look in here. I can hit Control F. No, yeah, to find in the decompiled class. Of course, it gave me an error. I'm looking for execute. Is there an execute method? No. Queer. Okay, so. Because a big class like this, we know it's where do we start? You know, where do we look to see? Could be so many. There should be an execute method. There it is. Ha! Look at that. So here's the it takes string SQL closures, process results. Throws, SQL exception. So behind the scenes, you can see that this is gonna. Let's see here if it is. Before I speak, it should be. Huh. No, there's a couple different methods here. This execute returns a boolean. That's what I was looking for. And it's a prepared statement. You see that right there. Okay, so that's what I wanted to check. So this method, where are we? Returns a boolean, okay? So if it works, it should be true, right? So let me back up. So I deleted a few of these things, right? So here. Now, when I put this in before, it gave me an error. So let's see what this ambiguous code block. What does that mean? Ambiguous code block. This should return a true or false. That didn't work. Here's what we're gonna do. Whoops. Yeah, Control Z to back up, back up, back up, back up. Okay, what I want to do is we'll copy this, Control C, paste that there. Now, if I take this, paste it there. If is successful is true. Oh, that's all. I don't need this if, then do I? Just return. This should. That's what I'm trying to do, right? Boy, that was a whole bunch of circles, wasn't it? So here, Boolean is successful. Assignment is not used. I don't understand why. It's right here. Interesting. So if this works, it's going to get a true or false. We'll return a true or false based if this worked. Control S to save. Let's go back over here to our test case. This is now going to have a true or false. That's going to work, hopefully, and we can try it. See, that's the whole point of Control S. Oh, yeah. Here. Run. Test. Select. Bada bing, bada boom. Let's see if this is working. And Instantiating, running test case. We're going to type in our password for the database. Boom, we got a green bar. Test work, test work. So we checked it if it works, and it works. So we'll go to our controller. Dot check user pass, and this this is gonna take a string array, right? So new string array, and in it we want to put, is this a Groovy? Yeah, Groovy file. So in here we're gonna do user, yes, and pass. There it is. Oh, I can't. Does he? Yeah. Let's go back for a second. Back. I'll just define the string array here. We'll call it params. Very good. Set it equal to a new with user and pass. There we go. Now we'll pass the string array called params in there. Control S to save. And now if this works to return true, we're going to print success. We know this is based on this test case, excuse me, that it should work just the same, and we can run it. Now this is going to be given if we type in the correct username and password that matches the already data in the database. Okay, so at this point we can go to run main and hit run, and everything should work just fine. Of course, we get an error. What happened here? It says, look, null pointer location is required. Of course, what's null on it? Main Java 13, main Java 13, sign in, get resources, sign in. Alright, so what's my problem here? Well, let's go to the top. We have invocation target method. First one, runtime exception and start. Well, that's odd, isn't it? Sign in. Alright, so since I'm learning, obviously, and sharing what I know, if there's anything else that I can do to be better at becoming a software engineer or developer, please let me know in the comments below. I'd love to hear your comments and stuff. I'm not sure if I have to put the package, right? I don't think I would have to put the package name here. I don't know why that's null. It shouldn't be. Is it misspelled? That's why it's not finding it. Sign in. Just a second, my wife's calling again. I'll pause. Alright, so Control S. Now that we have the right file there, we go Shift F10 to run it again. This time, it'll pass through that error because we know it's not null now. Actually, I'm going to cancel that real quick and change this title from Hello World to Sign In. Control S, Shift F10. And the reason I deleted those values here in this constructor for the new scene was because we want it to be the exact size of the FXML anchor pane and instead of what we passed in. Now here it is, beautiful. So it's username and password. We type in Sammy Davis, as we know, and the password was 123 pass 678 word. Let's go. Oh, enter. Success. Now, of course, over here in the method, the controller, at this point, you would take the username, this one text field, set text to 0, no, empty string, and pass word dot set text. Of course, this would be redundant if you're going to Control S to say if you're going to a different view. But that would make sure that this would clear that out for another use. So there you have it, guys. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you learned something. Questions, comments, likes, dislikes in the comments below. I'd love to hear from you. so that we can all help each other learn and grow together. Thanks a lot, and have a great day.